Thank you both for coming. I know it's the end of the day, so I'll try to be fast and effective. Applied VR is a startup company based in Los Angeles. We're focusing in pain, in acute pain, in chronic pain. And what we're trying to achieve is to create platforms that are useful in the medical sector. What is particularly interesting about VR is this somatic experience that we all have entering these spaces that will be possible without the ability to really trick our brain so easily. While our rational mind really tell us that nothing changed since we put the headset on, the reptilian brain jumps in and gives us this intense feelings that we all get, for example, when looking down a ledge in a virtual world, that some people panic, other people sweat. So all these powerful things that come with the medium come straight from the package. In traditional cinema, to do the suspension of disbelief, we invest a lot of time and effort. But in VR, that comes straight out of the box. So this is a very powerful technology, and that gives us a lot of responsibility, but also opens a lot of possibilities for learning, education, pain management, and a lot of other interesting applications. So what have we done so far is to develop a platform, especially addressing acute pain. What we want to do is to create a platform that is useful at hospitals for everyday use for all kinds of processes. There isn't better feeling for a doctor and a nurse to know that what they're doing while they're providing care, it's not painful. When a child or an adult really gets into this kind of a stressful moment, it's really painful for everyone in the room. So VR is really effective in, first of all, isolating the patient from the environment, so they don't see the wounds, they don't feel the tension at the hospital, but also for the doctors that they're able to concentrate. So our platform is already being used by 180 plus hospitals by now, and more than 5,000 patients. And we get stories of amazing stories that come every day about how people are used. We propose one use, and then we get all these stories on how nurses and doctors are using the platform every day for all kinds of conditions. And this is really powerful. But it's not just what we say or what the stories say, but we're that data-driven company. So we primarily look at data. So we created alliances with a lot of hospitals and had a lot of studies out there in order to understand every change that we're doing in our platform, how it affects the reduction of pain and anxiety to patients. And what we found out is like remarkable, like a 52% reduction of pain levels in patients. That was a study from Cedars-Sinai, and another 31% reduction in pain and 24% reduction in anxiety for children at children's hospitals in LA. But how that works, it's quite easy for those that have children. They know that when the child falls and you distract them, they suddenly stop crying and they start laughing, giggling, whatever. So pain perception has a strong psychological component. The same incoming pain signal can be interpreted as painful or not, depending on what the patient is thinking. So it's all about attention. When you focus your attention on your pain, the pain grows, it's a sensation. When your mind is occupied by other things, the pain processes go down. So the essence of VR is the illusion that the users have that they enter in a new environment, and that triggers a lot of interest in exploring the world, and it drains a lot of the attentional resources, leaving less attention that goes to the pain. So it's a pretty simple equation. Conscious attention is like a spotlight. So when they're focusing on the pain, they feel the pain, we're luring the spotlight into a virtual world. So based on this simple equation, Hunter Hoffman and Dave Panos in 1996 created Snow World. For those that are familiar with that, it's a game primarily for patients that have severe burns, and they need to go through changing the wound care that is very, very painful. So they implemented a world where these penguins and snowmen, and you're throwing snowballs, and also this association with the cold air and the ice that surrounds the patient was really helpful for them not to feel the pain. So back in 1996, with really poor graphics, we knew that this works. This actually works. What we found particularly interesting is like we started this exploration with a similar game to the Snow World that we developed. And we've seen a 24, in our first study with cedar-sinai, we've seen 24% reduction in pain. At the second study, we've seen 52. The difference between the first and the second is that now we had a lot more content for people to choose from. So it wasn't just something that we just put in front of every patient, but the patient could choose, and based on the interest, engagement was going up, and as engagement is going up, pain goes down. So that brought us into this kind of a mindset that we have to develop a VR pharmacy where there is a range of content for all kinds of conditions and all kinds of people. Because at the end of the day, it's the entertainment component and the engagement component that really drives the effectiveness of the platform. So we know that what needs to be done in acute pain. We have all this network of doctors and hospitals. We're talking with them every day. We get their feedback. We get feedback from patients. We're very systematic on how we layer every new module in our platform, how to make it better, and also run studies to see the effectiveness of every step we're taking. And that works, but it's not good enough. Not good enough for us. We were looking for a real big challenge because, as you've seen, creating a platform where you accumulate content and all that doesn't really seem challenging enough. So we found a really great challenge for us, and that's in chronic pain. Chronic pain is substantially different from acute pain. We cannot live in head-mounted displays forever, but in a way we can use distraction in chronic pain only for flare-ups, pain flare-ups. And we've used that, and that's okay, but what else? And I would like to show you a bit some data about chronic pain. 1 in 3 Americans are suffering from chronic pain. That's around 100 million people. The annual cost, according to NIH, is over $500 billion. That's substantial. And it reduces the ability of individuals to be productive because chronic pain is the major cause of missing work. So it really hits the economy, but most of all, it hits the individuals. They have trouble sleeping, they build fatigue, they go through catastrophization, depression, anxiety, mobility problems. Reduction of quality of life is apparent at every level. And for those that they know or they're suffering from chronic pain, or they know somebody that suffers from chronic pain, they can really understand what I'm talking about. So what are the solutions? There are actually two kinds of solutions. One is to go through the painkillers, primarily opioids, or engage with mindful exercises, massage, physical therapy, Tai Chi, yoga. Wait a minute, Tai Chi and yoga, who is saying that? The NIH? So what is happening here? Why the NIH is telling people to invest in mindfulness and Tai Chi and yoga? primarily because that works, and we'll talk more about it. But the other side of the equation is like because it's devastating what is happening out there. There is a really humanitarian crisis, a big crisis that we call it sometimes the opioid epidemic. Opioids, the subscription of opioids increased 300% in the last years. And there are all kinds of side effects, respiratory depression, mental clouding, physical dependencies, nausea, constipation, and that's the upper level. And often we have overdosing and death. But how many deaths do you think we have annually in the United States? Any guess? 40. Throw a number. 40,000, that was a good number. It's 35,000 deaths a year from synthetic opioids. To give you a reference, the casualties in the whole Vietnam War, casualties in action for 4 years period was close to 50,000. So it's unbelievable that in front of our eyes there is a war. And lately, the government and others, they're addressing the opioid epidemic, but they don't necessarily offer solutions. What they say is like, oh, stop prescribing it. Great. So we have people now that they have chronic pain, they're on opioids, their life decays, and suddenly they don't have access to the medicine. Apparently, it's not just a medicine. It's a very addictive medicine. So the withdrawal with the chronic pain on top of that, it's just a catastrophe. So what's happening? How people can? What is reimbursable in our system? There are two things that are alternative to opioids. One is psychoeducation. Primarily CBT and ACT. CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy. ACT is acceptance and commitment therapy. They're both well studied. We know that they work, and we also know why they work. The other thing is biofeedback training. Biofeedback training, for those that they don't know, is a whole idea of using technology to relax the individual. It can be done with various sensors that sense the relaxation levels of the individual. And then through some basic visualization, also through some gamification in the best case scenarios, the individual learns progressively how to relax. And when they relax, the pain drops. But how real are these solutions? Apparently, there is a shortage of psychologists. In the best case scenarios, we see a bit more than 80 psychologists per 100,000 people, which is not enough. And but if you see the map, in a vast area of the country, there are 10 to 20 psychologists per 100,000 people. And if we go with the math that one-third of the population is suffering from chronic pain, is one psychologist every 2,000-3,000 people. That's not possible to offer these services. That's why we hear more and more about psychologists creating platforms for telemedicine and deliver psychoeducation through the internet, which is a good approach. What is happening with biofeedback? Biofeedback got exploited in the past years. There was so many prescription of biofeedback that now insurances do not actually cover it. It's really hard to get insurances to cover it. And if they cover it, it's not a recurrent thing. So they're kind of broken solutions, but at least we know that there's something there that works. So we step in and we created a platform that is based on mobile VR. And all our platforms, by the way, it's based on mobile VR for many reasons. And it's a combination of the virtual reality headset, a bunch of biosensors that we try to keep it simple, and also your mobile phone that gives you notifications, triggers the VR, and takes you through a curriculum over an 8-day period. So the core function of the platform is to teach you how to relax, educate the patients to the principles of pain coping and why things work, and teach them techniques and breathing exercises. Um, so there's certain markers, biomarkers that can objectively tell whether a person is getting into a relaxation zone, and that can give us the information within the digital game or the digital intervention to adjust the parameters in order to drive them into deep relaxation. So when somebody relaxes, the heart rate decreases. The heart rate variability, which is a marker of the heart rate, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, increases. The hand temperature raises. Breathing slows down, and the alpha brain waves increase. And from all of these, we realize that heart rate and breathing, it's the best marker for us because, you know, the brain interfaces, for example, are really noisy, and the how to pair and all that. So we went through a lot of these devices, and we concluded in using microphones actually to sense the breathing, because we compromise a little bit of the accuracy of the data, but we can scale up versus having bands and all kinds of other things that are cumbersome. The same for the heart rate monitors. Although the bands are very accurate, it's very hard to convince somebody for doing a 10 minutes breathing exercise to wear bands. So we have a little wristband. The science of it, and actually, because we're running just a bit out of time, there's a concept that is called respiratory sinus arrhythmia. And what you see here is data that we collected from an individual working, and that's the upper line, and that's the heart rate. And that's the heart rate when they're relaxing. As you see, when they're relaxing, there's this sinusoidal thing that is following the breathing. So when we're relaxing, as we're breathing, the heart rate goes up and down, and that's where we're targeting. That's what we want to see from patients to happen. So we created this platform that spans over 8 days. And in the first 4 days, it's primarily psychoeducation. It's an intro to VR, it's body scanning, mindfulness. Like, we get you into a state of mind that you observe the world around you and you observe yourself. Then you focus on your breathing. Then we teach you the diaphragmatic breathing, paced breathing. The target is 6 breaths a minute. That's where we have coherence. That is the maximum effect of the respiratory sinus arrhythmia, sorry. And the rest of the 4 days is practicing breathing through some little games. As part of that, in order to build everything together, have a coherency, we engage a lot with subject matter experts, pain psychologists, clinicians, behavioral psychologists, neuroscientists, writers that are trained specifically in world building. World building is a methodology that we use right now by USC at the World Building Lab. It's been well put together by Alex McDowell, a great colleague and an amazing guy from Hollywood production. A Hollywood production designer that created a comprehensive system on how to set up rules for a lot of stories to emerge. So based on this methodology, we created this space, this story that I'll show you some videos so you get an idea. And the whole premise is like you are in this environment that once was lush and then it decayed. And that actually has a significance with the patients suffering from chronic pain, because they all refer to this singular event that something happened and it's totally radically saved their life to this dystopia. So we incorporated that into our design, and what is happening is like you go through a story The music is dynamic, the narrative is dynamic, it gives you instructions. Um, if you see if you pay attention, maybe we'll see it a bit later. The tree is breathing. Everything is kind of breathing at 6 sinusoids a minute to cue you. You hear the birds and the crickets, everything is relaxing. So the story was that there was this land, this civilization that was storing energy in the crystal, and the crystal was maintaining the environment. And you see the messaging day in and day out. It's like everything, the whole script is designed to kind of and now the world decays. And after that, you enter a whole journey restoring the environment. And that's also complementary to how they feel the progress that they're doing through the curriculum through the days. So the first, after going through the 4 days and they learn about the breathing and all that, and we give them the gift of a pacer that really can drive your breathing. There is this tree. So this is the actual breathing of the individual, and that's an amazing effect to patients. They have agency in the world. It's not just the sense of presence and the story. And then it goes through these cycles where the patient restores the tree within 5-6 minutes. And I'll give you another example. You remember the crystal that was there? So after the blinding, the crystal became red for blue, and it's really hot, which is a reference to pain as well, that sometimes it has this sensation of heat. And now the whole little game is to cool down the crystal. And as you cool down the crystal, you're restoring the environment. And also the music progresses. So the music layers kind of build up to accommodate the progression of the world and all that. So that's more or less it. And I would like to discuss a bit the challenges that we face. Technology is still under development. A lot of people have problems with the headset and all that. A lot of chronic pain patients are a bit older, they're seniors, so they have some issues with technology. We've been using the Gear VR, now we're jumping into Oculus Go, and that solved a lot of problems. The medical grade biosensors are still expensive. So although we design and we have a clinical side with medical grade biosensors, when it gets to the actual patients, the data are a bit compromised, so they don't have clinical validity per se, but still they can be part of the gamification. So they're absolutely valid. It's just for us, we cannot scale up and get data that they have a clinical validity. The patients, the most important problem is like the patient base is extremely diverse. We appeal to everyone. So either we have to design these experiences to appeal to every segment of the population that likes whatever to watch, or we need to capitalize on finding out what is the best story and all that to capture as many people as possible, which is a really big challenge, like creating a movie like Star Wars, right? It's like you have to please everyone. There is a resistance to new age stuff. When people, especially in the middle of the country, they hear about mindfulness, they're like, Californians. It's like they don't buy into the idea. Regardless that mindfulness and all these practices are well documented that they have significant reduction in chronic pain, the perception of chronic pain, because we're not solving a problem, we accommodate the sensation. Mobile VR rendering capabilities, everyone that does mobile VR, it's really challenging, but still we pulled a lot of tricks in order to give a nice polished world and an interesting, engaging content to people. Then it's like whether we go FDA or not FDA. There are pros and cons in both of these approaches. Then it's how we model the effectiveness and how we can tune our design. So effectiveness, returnability, transferability of skills, they're all kind of the same thing. How you create something that I get the skill, and then even if I measure that somebody got the skill, for how long they retain the skill, and how they transfer the skill in the everyday life. So these are challenging things that they feed back to the design. And also resistance. People, it's like going to the gym. They, you know that it's good for you, but it's just, you don't do it. So how to convince somebody that they have to give even 10 minutes of their lives into something that have a long-term gain? Hence the gamification. You try to create a model where they take some tokens of excitement as they move forward. Some design consideration, engage in transdisciplinary teams. These are high-level problems. You need expertise that come from everywhere, and that's also the holistic way, the holistic design approach. Research and understand the problem in its full complexity. You cannot isolate the problem. You have to see it within the life of the patient. Be mindful of patients and their condition. There is no design genius. So we incorporate a lot of feedback from the patients and all that, and try to understand and cater to them. Personalize and calibrate. Not two patients are the same. There's always needs to be, so when we detect breathing, there's a machine learning for the breathing adaptation and all that. We need to do that. To do simple solutions are key. Engage patient, doctors, and general public at test groups. If it works for the general public, it probably will work for the patients, because again, it's an entertainment thing that you try to amplify in order to build engagement. Clinical outcomes are good, but not perfect indication of efficacy. Again, it's the whole idea of how you transfer the skills and how you retain the skills. And transferability is a big issue. So we've seen a lot of improvements in pain, stress, mood, and sleep, which are 4 markers. It was a little study of 40 people over 8 days, which is not enough to have as a clinical validated data, but they give us useful feedback in our process to design this platform. It's all the tech challenges for the patients. A lot of them reported the problems with the devices. We hope that we solve a good chunk of them with the Oculus Go. And still, we put a lot of effort, engineering effort. For example, all our heart rate monitors and all that, you don't need to pair them. They just see each other and they connect. But still, people find it difficult. But those who like it really use it. We've seen, this thing that people get engaged, and overall, what we've seen is like a thumbs up. People want to see more of these things, and at our next development phase, we're gonna have a 30 days curriculum. So we extend it. So we see over 30 days, is there any serious marker for positive behavioral shift? And design and execute a much bigger and more sophisticated study. So we just completed our Series A, and we have a runway to scale up our design processes and production, but also our studies, and find the right content to please and the style, which, again, for me, that's the biggest challenge. Some disclosures. I'm part of Applied VR, and I'm also a professor at USC teaching XR at the Game Pipe Lab, but I'm not talking as an academic here. I'm representing Applied VR. And we're hiring. But it's exciting. As I told you, we finished our Series A, and we're hoping that we'll extend our team and have people that fall into similar ethics that we have. Yeah, it's going to be an exciting year, and probably we'll see you next year with some news and updates about our platform and what we're doing. Thank you very much.